back to this special live edition of Bookshelf. This is Elf with Silly Hat, Carlos Abdu, with my good friend Jon Gorga. How you doing, man?
Hello, sir.
How you doing, man?
So pretty good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure, man. We've been friends for quite a while. Knew you since
it's been a year or two.
It's been a year or two since that graphic arts guild cartoon group.
Yeah. I started popping in. Ellen Stedfeld, who I'm now really close with, but didn't know her very well at the time, invited me just because I seem to be somebody into comics, into the creation of comics, into talking to people about comics, and she wanted me to drop in and see if there was anything I could get out of it, whether I wanted to take part in that comics and cartoons group she was doing for the Graphics Artists Guild. And I was happy to meet you. You're a talented guy, and I discovered that watching you doodle during those meetings.
Yeah, well, I happen to doodle when I don't actually know what I'm actually doing about. Let me ask, when we met in that group, you showed me a bit of your own comics and your blog, the comicsmith.com.
Yeah, the blog with the comics on it, the comics.
Yeah. How did that start? What type of comics do you do?
Well, my comics are I do a few different, either autobiographical or nonfiction, but it's all about, like, just about everything I've done has been about the real world in one way or another. It's either been an episode of my life, some moment from my life, or something that I've witnessed. I did 6 pages about the homeless people that live in Grand Central Terminal a year or two ago, all with photographs, because I can't do what you do. As we talked about at that meeting, remember that? Remember that time you drew a stick figure, walking, and somehow you could pull across in cartooning you could pull off the idea that he was walking into the wind, and we had that discussion about how that's how a cartoonist thinks, and I can't do that, even though I love comics and I love it.
But you still have a very unique way of doing sequential comic books.
Yeah, by using the photographs.
If anything, it's the truest way of doing sequential comic books, because you have a still image in order to represent motion, or represent ideas, and so forth. So why not just take a photograph, have it posed, and just add a bunch of word balloons?
And that's exactly why I started doing nonfiction and autobiographical exclusively, because attempting to do fiction with that, it was messy. I did it in college. I experimented with using photos to do fiction comics, staging people, and it's possible, but it's awkward and
also kind of a little expensive, because not only do
you
have to
hire actors.
You don't have to hire actors, but
I used friends because I was a college student.
You use your friends, but it's difficult to make the staging right in order to get the motion right. In case you're doing any science fiction or fantasy fiction or superhero fiction, you got to do the costumes. You got to do fake effects.
And I was doing a superhero. It was a superhero book I attempted in college.
Really?
I dressed a friend up as a goofy superhero and attempted to do a serious story with the goofy visuals.
This is why half the time when someone actually does superhero fiction with photography, people just stick to urban vigilantes or those crazy guys over in Philadelphia. You know who?
The real life superhero people. Well, those people are amazing. I mean, possibly,
a little crazy, a little bit egocentric.
Possibly it may not be the best thing for the universe in the long run, but they're trying. They're trying to make something real. They're trying to make the world a better place. And I respect that top to bottom. I mean, I may be doing something really different. I'm creating comics, and I'm operating a retail venue that's also sort of a studio space. But I like to think what I'm doing is making the world a better place. So I believe in those guys.
And we're just randomly picking people that we know and videotaping them and talking about comics, and we're making a difference, right? We're not wasting our life. Mom, I'm sorry I failed that class. I'll do better. No, but serious.
It all adds up. It all adds up. Communication.
Well, through those comic books and your comic smithy blog, you ended up with Ellen Stedfeld.
Yes. I met her at the Museum of Comics and Cartoon Art at its old location. The guy who was in charge of membership recognized that we were two creative people that might get along and introduced us. And then later she invited me to the meetings where I met you. She and I developed into a really serious friendship, and now I edit her work, actually. Yeah,
you're a writer-editor for Pronto Comics.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with that?
God, how did I get involved with Pronto? I've been trying to remember that. I'm not sure. I think
you just randomly popped out in the pizza place and like, I have delicious pizza. Hey,
these people make comics at the pizza place.
You like comics? You like to make comics? You want money for comics?
And you like to eat pizza.
Yeah, and just Dominic just so the whole show was okay, yeah.
I mean, that's actually not so far from how it works at Pronto Comics. You kind of just start showing up, and then you start to get comfortable with the people, and then they get comfortable with you, and then it's like, well, hey, if you're showing up at the meetings and you're kicking that little bit of money in for the attendance to the meetings and getting to talk to creators, then you're free to pitch. At least throw an idea their way and see what happens. They're a great group because they're also just trying to make the world a better place. They're trying to help people make comics.
Well, let's head out to the nitty gritty right now. How did you get into comics?
I discovered comics first. Well, through the superhero stuff, like a lot of males in American society in the 20th century. It was the superhero stuff. When I was, oh my God, even younger than 8, I started reading Batman. I started falling in love with Batman. It was Batman: A Death in the Family, which came out.
The Neil Adams run, right?
No, it's a little post Neil Adams. It's Jim Starlin.
Oh,
Jim
yeah,
Starlin,
yeah.
or Jim Aparo. I think it's Jim Aparo.
Uh-huh.
It's the death of Jason Todd, the death of the second Robin. Some older kid, like a teenager, put the paperback in my hands when I was visiting. I was at a baby shower for friends of my parents.
You were just bored out of your mind.
Bored out of my mind because it was a baby shower and I was 8. I didn't know what to do. I didn't give a crap about any of that stuff. But this older guy, maybe a young teenager, put the book in my hand. We were hanging out talking about Batman, and he was like, "This is the original stuff. This is real. This is where Batman comes from. Like that cartoon you're watching on TV is just like an adaptation, and those movies that you're watching with those actresses, that's just an adaptation. This is real Batman." And it's true. It's true to a degree. It's a little silly to say anything's real, but the comics were first. As that's when I started
That's
reading
what a
some
lot of
comics.
people are kind of forgetting.
And then it grew from there. And then I left it behind for a while. And then at 8 years old or so, somebody gave me a Spider-Man comic. And
Which one? Let's see.
yeah, it was
Started on
a
Death in the
Spider-Man.
Family. I'm guessing.
Yeah, but there was that gap of years. You're gonna have trouble piecing it together.
Was it the McFarlane run?
No, post McFarlane.
Post McFarlane. So I'm thinking Mark Bagley.
Yes, he was definitely the artist at that point. Although it wasn't an issue of Amazing.
Oh,
It wasn't an issue of Amazing Spider-Man. It was an issue of adjectiveless, as they call it.
Oh,
The Spider-Man run that Todd McFarlane started, but he had left it behind at this point. It had been a couple years after that. And but Bagley was the artist of the era, main artist, because he was the artist on Amazing. Yeah,
He was my definite Spider-Man artist.
Me too.
I just remember getting
I love
this
this
issue
stuff.
where Spider-Man was in trouble for the creation of Venom. Because
Sure,
apparently,
yeah.
some people blamed him for not stopping Venom. And
The Jury, right?
Jury.
Yeah, so that must be Amazing 380 something.
Yeah, I remember that, and I just remember, oh my God, look how big Spider-Man's eyes are.
Yeah.
And like
Post
holy-
McFarlane, they made the eyes.
to make
super
the eyes and incredibly expressive.
things.
And even though McFarlane was like the king of swing, the so-called king of swing, I love the posture that Bagley did with Spider-Man. He still kept him super heroic, but he understood he was a thinner athlete, more wiry.
Yeah. When Spider-Man's drawn thin and wiry, like a spider,
This is where you get the essence of
you
what
get some
Victor was
real
trying to
beautiful
get.
stuff. Yeah. This is a lot of people say, which then
Wish.
we should segue to what we're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly.
You guys
So-
asked me just to put down to talk about some of my favorites.
This is some of
personally.
your favorite Spider-Man stories right there.
I mean, this is the beginning. This is the bedrock. This is the earliest stuff. The Stan Lee did this stuff.
What is it about the classic Spider-Man that allures you more than the ones that you grew up reading and watching?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, I'd say I love them equally because I have that nostalgia for the stuff, the Mark Bagley stuff that we were talking about when I was a kid. But I absolutely adore this stuff. It's a little cheesy, it's a little retro, but if you read it in context, thinking about the era, it's pretty revolutionary. I was showing a woman who's a marketing genius who lives in the neighborhood. She's a sweetheart. I was showing her this stuff recently. The first page of the first Spider-Man comic portrays him before he's gotten his powers as a social outcast. So to present a character as a social outcast and then to turn them into the hero, they didn't do that in the 1950s.
And the thing, Victor didn't want this though. In the beginning, he wanted him to be a lot like his Question or Mr. A. He wanted to be like I can't say Dadaist, but You know, a Randis type hero. He's big and bulky
Ditko
like
wants
that.
everybody to be an Ayn Randian ideal.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't really make the Spider-Man concept work. What Lee did was making him a teenage hero with real-life problems, typical everyman.
Yeah.
That's what really picks Spider-Man up. That's what people adore him. What makes him the quintessential
I think so
superhero
too.
of New York.
I think so too. But part of the appeal was definitely what Ditko did, the thin, wiry look. I mean, if it weren't for... Ditko did a comic at one of the heights of his anger, in that Ditko-Lee, ongoing argument as to whether...
Is it Strange? Is it Doctor Strange?
No, I mean, he did something just a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
That was just 2 panels. And panel 1 is, this is Stan Lee's Spider-Man. And it's just a bunch of words. It's just a concept. It's a character who shoots webs out of his hands, who's a teenager. And panel 2 is, this is Steve Ditko's Spider-Man. And there's, the visual of the red suit with the webs coming out of the wrists, particularly, and the hand gesture that he was obsessed with for some reason, because with Doctor Strange it looks like this, with Spider-Man it's like this, and they're both Ditko. Nobody's ever been able to explain that. But point being, Ditko brought a huge amount to the character. There's definitely, we definitely can't leave Ditko out of the equation.
No,
but Lee brought the personality to it. If it was Ditko without Lee, he wouldn't have been a teenager, he wouldn't have had his voice, he wouldn't have felt human.
No. I see some of the Jack Kirby drawings of Spider-Man. Look, as much as those two has created magic,
Lee and Ditko on other stuff was incredible.
I don't think I ever want. I think that would have been the first failure of the new Marvel universe if Kirby was doing Spider-Man.
Maybe, man. Maybe. I hear where you're coming from. It would have been the wrong field. I mean, in fact, what a lot of people don't know, though, actually, this is Kirby.
What?
Amazing Fantasy 15's cover is Kirby. And if you stop and look at it, you're like,
the
it's got
face kind of had the Kirby, but...
And the muscles. The muscles are there. Because when you look at that, and then you look
at a classic Ditko.
At any of these moments like that, the muscles are gone. Which is, as we were saying, it should be thin and wiry. He should look a little dangerous.
It wasn't that much of an over-exaggeration like Kirby does with his characters.
Yeah.
Even Black Bolt is incredible.
Lee was obviously already telling him to tone it down. Yeah. I wonder if they put in here. Yeah. This is the Ditko cover. This is the Ditko cover that wasn't used in the Amazing Fantasy.
You can notice in this one in particular, he kind of has a very strong inspiration from Bob Kane and Dick Tracy comics right over there.
Yeah, I hear that. The color scheme, if nothing else. I mean, I know Ditko wouldn't have done the colors, but you're right. I mean, the way the gangsters have their own unique looks. They're all sort of run on a gimmick. Yeah, it's definitely the Chester Gould, Dick Tracy comic, and then which was carried over into the Bob Kane Batman. Yeah.
Well, let me ask, what are the comics that you like right now?
Well, there's definitely a whole bunch coming out that are fantastic. I love, one of my favorites is Little Depressed Boy, actually. Little Depressed Boy by S. Stephen Struble and drawn by Sina Grace. It's super human. In the opposite sense, it's tremendously human. It's what I loved about the character of somebody like Peter Parker, a character like Peter Parker, but done without the superhero element. Just about a guy who's unlucky in love. A guy who's unlucky in love, who can't seem to catch a break, who, seems to genuinely have depression. It's done with a lot of humor, and he's a very sarcastic character, but he's drawn like a living sock puppet. That character, the Little Depressed Boy, or LDB, as the writers refer to him. That stuff's excellent if people aren't checking that out. Little Depressed Boy, Image Comics. He's drawn like a little sock puppet, but the stuff is all 100% naturalistic, human, slice of life stories. With they love music, they love comics, they hang out at bars. But it's color. It's published by Image, and it's very funny, and it's excellent stuff. But on that tip, yes, if we're going to find something from the store, I got off talking about how much I love Sina Grace and Struble's.
Can we find Sina Grace right over here?
I know we've got one of the most recent collections. We'll look at that. Maybe we'll pull that out too.
We'll pull that out.
But here's a slice of life comic by one of the storefront artists, one of the people that I have drawing in the window on a weekly basis. It was drawn a couple years ago, drawn by this excellent comicsmith, as I like to refer to the people that do everything themselves. Her name is Jen Overstreet. She's super talented. It's really strange, but really beautiful. It's called To Whom It May Concern, and it's about being an unemployed artist living in New York City.
So,
But an unemployed musician, actually, in the case of the character, but it applies.
that's why it has such a rock cover appeal right here.
Yeah.
It almost looks like it's
And this is the character singing in the band. The sound effects are done fantastically well. And this was her first comic. This was Jen's first comic. And I think it's really impressive stuff.
What else is Jen doing right now?
Let me see. She's working on a follow-up to this one that I think is going to be much longer. But I haven't seen any art from her. She also uses technology in some smart ways. She's got a screen capture from the phone with the character's name. What's her follow-up? I thought I saw the title. Now I can't remember what it is. It's not done, if I'm not mistaken.
And how likely Jen comes to the store? What other artists?
We have her scheduled on a weekly thing. I think it's posted online. If it isn't, I should rectify that. Getting artists to stick to a schedule of arriving at one place with the tools and drawing is a little bit like herding cats. There have been times where I've had,
it's just
not
hard
always,
for us
it's not
to
always
kind of
perfect.
get up.
You know how it is.
I
Especially
know
once
it.
you become a professional and you really don't have to follow any kind of schedule other than hitting the deadline. So I'm not actually sure what her official schedule point is. I don't think we've put one off yet.
Well,
we will eventually. Some of the artists I've
there's
pinned
always
down
two
to
extremes
jobs.
right now with an artist. There's one who spends every waking moment of his life drawing a page, drawing a drawing, drawing a commission, just doing everything and going little to no sleep. And there are those of us who spend most of the day doing bullshit and then try to rush through an entire issue within a week.
They both exist. And both of them are welcome at Carmine St Comics. Part of the beauty of this studio space, I've had artists drop by and say, "Oh man, I gotta get back home and finish these pages out for this deadline. Sorry, I can't sit and draw." And then I was like, "What? Wait. It's a drawing board. It's a studio space. Just
Draw.
do it." And then they're like,
Just do your
"Oh,
work
what
right
the
here."
hell?" And then they hop up there, and if nobody was there and nobody else was scheduled, so he just hopped up there and he finished the book. He finished the book right there in the front window. And I love it. I'm really proud to be able to supply that to artists.
And what about your followers? What new projects are you going to be working on up
Oh man,
Is this your baby
personally,
right now?
Yeah, essentially, which kind of breaks my heart, but I also get this gratification of helping other comics creators putting themselves forward on a day-to-day basis. I feel a real swelling of pride every time I see somebody succeed in selling a mini comic right from the table when one of my customers is on their way out. It really makes me happy. It's really important to me. So my own work has taken a backseat for the time being. Let me see. I'm doing a little editing for Pronto when they send stuff my way. I'm doing a little script doctoring work for friends on the side, but I really don't have time to commit to an entire project.
Well, hopefully we can see more of your stuff over at the Comic Smithy.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
And
There's
hopefully
definitely some
we can
backlog of
see
stuff up
more,
there. People
more
can check out.
things. Will you be publishing any of your comics through Carmine?
Well, it's possible that we might be getting into publishing later. Already the fact that some of the artists, when they're hanging out, have created a comic from whole cloth, just sitting there about the store or about us or about what they did that morning, just for the fun of it, just as a warm-up. We're beginning to realize that's adding up. That next time we turn around, we're going to have 20 pages of
Comics
original
dedicated
comics just created here about the store or about what was happening when somebody was here or what they did at jury duty last week before they came, and they just dash it off for the fun of it. And a whole lot of wonderful spot illustrations, original art, beautiful stuff. So we are beginning to think about how we might be able to pull together a little side publishing stuff. It'd be really exciting. It would be another dream. It would be a double dream come true for me and Mike, my partner in crime, the co-owner with myself, to have a small publishing company run out of the store while also supplying artists a place to do their work.
Well, if you can make
And
it,
sell
kid, you
comics.
can make it anywhere, man.
That's very true.
We'll be showing you examples of the art that has been posted over at Carmine Comics. You can find most of them over at the Carmine Comics Facebook.
It's facebook.com/Carmine Street Comics. And you can find that pretty easy at www.carminestreetcomics.com.
Alright, man. John. It's always been a pleasure with you.
Oh, you're the best, Carlos. Thanks so much for.
We'll be
for
back
coming
with
down.
one last interview with Jon Gorga right after this. Thank you again for another episode of Bookshelf. Peace!